I lay awake in bed long after she'd fallen asleep beside me. She looked peaceful, curled up with her back to me. And I hated that I couldn't tell if it was real. I used to believe in her completely, no doubts, no second-guessing. Now, I was lying in the dark trying to remember the last time she'd said I love you without me saying it first. I turned onto my side and stared at the ceiling, playing that message over and over in my head. Thank you for last night. I want more. It wasn't just the words. It was the int asterisk Macy in them. The familiarity. Whoever sent that message wasn't testing boundaries. They were already inside them. And Emily had been ready. Too ready. That's what haunted me. Not the affair itself, because at that point I didn't even have proof. No names, no photos, no timelines. Just a single message and a gut feeling. But it was enough to plant a seed. And once that seed was there, it rooted itself in everything. The next morning, I got up earlier than usual, made coffee, stared out the window as the sun came up over the rooftops. Emily wandered in half asleep, yawning, wearing my old college sweatshirt like nothing was wrong. "Morning," she mumbled. "Morning." She kissed my cheek, and I fought the urge to flinch. We sat in silence as we drank our coffee. And for the first time in our marriage, the silence didn't feel companionable. Felt like a wall, and neither of us knew who built it first. After that night, everything looked different. Even the parts that had been right in front of me all along. It's a strange thing, how your brain rewrites the past when a single doubt creeps in. One suspicious text, and suddenly you're combing through months of memories, picking them apart like crime scenes. Little things you brushed off now feel loaded. What once was innocent becomes evidence. Nothing escapes the reframe. That morning, I sat at the kitchen table, watching Emily stir her coffee like she hadn't detonated a bomb the night before. She hummed softly, some pop song from the radio, and smiled at the window, not at me. She was wearing a new bathrobe, one I hadn't seen before. Navy blue, with a gold trim on the cuffs. Probably expensive. Everything she'd been buying lately had that look. Elegant but excessive. "Where'd you get that?" I asked. She blinked, then looked down at herself like she had to remember. "Oh, Nordstrom. It was on clearance. I had a gift card from Christmas." I nodded, not really believing her. Not really disbelieving her either. Just filing it away, because that was becoming a pattern. She'd bought a red cocktail dress last month. Form-fitting, bold, not her usual style. I asked about it, and she gave me the same story. It was on sale. Then came a pair of diamond earrings, a leather clutch, 2 new perfumes, always on sale, always last minute, but never for me, and never worn around me either. She'd say, "It's just for fun." But I couldn't remember the last time we went anywhere fancy together. When she wore those dresses, it wasn't for dinner dates with me. It was for work mixers or girls' nights or self-care events that seemed more and more fabricated every time she mentioned them. The lies weren't loud. They didn't crash through the walls. They came in like a breeze through a cracked window, subtle, but cold. That morning, as I watched her sip her coffee, I started mentally revisiting the past few months. Her schedule had shifted, but subtly, just enough not to raise alarms. She used to be home by 6, and suddenly it was 7. Then 7:30, then 8. "Traffic's insane," she'd say, or, "We had a late call with the West Coast team." I didn't question it at first. Why would I? She had always been responsible, honest, solid. But now I remembered seeing her car parked in weird places. Once near 17th and Sherman, nowhere near her office, just a block from one of those rooftop hotels. Another time by the old theater downtown, which she said she hated going near because of the parking. I didn't think much of it then. Maybe she was meeting friends. Maybe she got dinner. But maybe wasn't good enough anymore. I also remembered the gym. That became her newest hobby after the holidays. New year, new goals. She joined a boutique fitness place on the west side of town, yoga, spin classes, strength training. She came home glowing, saying she was finally doing something for herself. I was happy for her, at first, but then I noticed things, like how her workout bag barely ever moved from its spot by the door. How her water bottle was always full. How she still had makeup on when she got back, perfectly applied. No sweat, no fatigue. And when I'd ask how her workout went, she'd smile too brightly and say, "Intense?" or "Harder than I thought," and then disappear upstairs. One night I peeked inside the bag. It was almost empty. Just a towel and a deodorant stick. No shoes. No gym clothes. No lock for a locker. Just a prop. And the perfume, God, the perfume. She used to wear light floral scents, subtle and soft. Lately, though, it was something heavier, darker. Expensive smelling. The kind that leaves a trail behind her in the hallway. I asked her about it and she laughed. "Trying something new," she said. "It's S*XY, right?" It was, but it didn't feel like it was for me. Even the way she touched me had changed. She used to lean into hugs, linger when she kissed my cheek. Now she pulled away quicker. Her hand would brush mine but not stay. She kissed me goodnight like someone clocking out of a shift. It was distant, mechanical, like we were playing parts in a play neither of us enjoyed anymore. The most glaring thing was her phone. It was never just lying around anymore. Always in her pocket or face down on the counter. Notifications hidden. Password changed twice in the last month. When I asked why, she shrugged. Work security policy. IT's been cracking down. But IT had never cracked down before. And she had started using the bathroom with the door locked. That was new too. There was one night I couldn't sleep. Around 2 in the morning, I walked downstairs for some water. Her phone was charging on the kitchen counter, screen facing up. She was fast asleep upstairs. I stared at it for a full minute, my hand hovering over it like it might explode if I touched it. I didn't check it. I should have. I didn't. Back then, I still wanted to believe that my suspicion made me the bad guy. That if I crossed that line, if I went looking, I was the one damaging the marriage. I thought trust was about giving the benefit of the doubt. But now I know better. Now I know trust is only real when it's mutual. And this wasn't mutual. In the evenings, when I sat across from her on the couch and she laughed at something on her phone, I started noticing how little she shared. She used to read me texts from her sister, show me memes from her coworkers. Now she kept her screen tilted, eyes flicking toward me every few seconds like a lookout. One night I said, "What's so funny?" She looked startled. "What?" "You were laughing. Just now." "Oh." She paused. "It's this dumb video. I'll send it to you." She never did. Sometimes I'd wake up and hear her downstairs on the phone, whispering. Always short conversations. Once, when I came down to ask if everything was okay, she said she was talking to her cousin about a medical issue. She looked flustered. Her face was pale. "You all right?" I asked. "Yeah," she said quickly. "Just sensitive stuff. Sorry if I woke you." That was 2 weeks ago. Her cousin lives in Boston. We haven't seen her in 5 years. Even the dog noticed something. Our golden retriever, Max, used to love cuddling with Emily. But recently he stopped following her around. He'd watch her from across the room with a tilted head, like he didn't recognize her scent anymore. I wish that was metaphor. One day I asked if she wanted to go out that weekend. Get away for a bit. Just the two of us. Breckenridge, maybe. Somewhere quiet. She hesitated. "I'd love to, but I have this wellness retreat Saturday. It's been planned for months." "Wellness retreat?" "Yeah," she said too quickly. "Part of the gym package. A bunch of us are going." She turned back to her laptop and didn't look up again. I went upstairs that night and stared at the ceiling for hours, listening to the silence between us grow wider by the second. I tried to tell myself it was stress, that couples go through these patches, that maybe I was the one pulling away. But deep down I knew the signs. I just didn't want to name them yet. Because once you do, everything changes. You can't go back. Still, I couldn't pretend any longer. The story she was living didn't match the one we were telling everyone else. There were 2 versions of Emily now. The one I knew, and the one I was slowly starting to see through piece by careful piece. And the hardest part? She never once looked scared. Not like someone who made a mistake. More like someone who knew exactly what she was doing, and believed she wouldn't get caught. The moment I canceled my trip, I felt like I was betraying myself. Not because I wanted to go. God knows I didn't have the energy to pitch anything to investors that week, but because I had planned it as an excuse, a shield. If I left, I wouldn't have to look too closely, wouldn't have to dig. I could pretend things were fine and delay the inevitable. But I didn't want to pretend anymore. I called my assistant that morning and told her I'd be working remotely. She didn't ask questions. I think she heard it in my voice, how brittle it sounded. Then I opened our bank app. I had glanced at it dozens of times in the past few months, just enough to confirm bills were paid and balances were stable, but this time I studied it. I combed through the charges line by line. Most things were normal. Grocery store runs, takeout from the Thai place, her boutique fitness app. And then I saw it. Renaissance Sky Lounge, $186. The name sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it at first. I clicked the charge and saw the date. 3 weeks ago, Friday night. The same night she told me she was having a girls' night at Amanda's house. I Googled the name. It was a rooftop restaurant. Downtown. Classy. Romantic. Definitely not a hangout for yoga friends. It appeared again on another Friday. Same charge, almost identical amount. Twice. Pattern. I felt a chill creep down my spine. I stared at the screen like it would change if I blinked enough times. But the dates stayed the same. The location didn't lie. Emily wasn't where she said she was. And this place wasn't cheap. It wasn't dinner with coworkers. This was curated. Reserved. Int asterisk mate. I didn't want to imagine her there. But I couldn't stop. That night, I made a decision. I waited until she left for what she claimed was book club, then grabbed my coat, keys, and a stomach full of dread and drove downtown. It was the kind of evening where the air tasted like metal and headlights looked too bright. Traffic crawled, but I barely noticed. My thoughts were louder than the noise around me. When I pulled into the garage across from the hotel, I recognized her car immediately. Parked in the corner, front-facing, like she didn't even care to hide it. The gym bag was in the back seat, untouched. The Renaissance was on the 19th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows, string lights draped above the rooftop patio. Live jazz bleeding softly into the air. The kind of place you go to fall in love or pretend you never did. I didn't go inside. Not yet. Instead, I walked around to the alley, found a quiet corner of the building where I could see through the glass. And there she was, Emily, sitting at a small, candlelit table near the edge. Her hair was done differently, looser, styled. She wore the red dress she told me she'd returned. Her heels were the expensive pair she kept in the back of the closet. She looked breathtaking. I felt something twist inside me. Even now, even after everything, she still had that effect on me. And across from her was him. Tall, clean-cut, suit jacket draped over the chair. Hair neatly styled. Probably mid-30s. I couldn't see him well, not through the glass, but I could see enough. The way his hand rested near hers on the table. How close they sat. How their bodies tilted toward each other. Not like acquaintances, not even like friends, but like people who shared secrets in the dark. They were laughing. Not politely, not awkwardly. They laughed like they knew each other. Then it happened. She reached across the table, touched his wrist lightly, and leaned in. He said something that made her eyes sparkle. And then they kissed. Not a peck. Not a drunken mistake. A slow, familiar kiss. The kind that told me this wasn't the first time. I didn't flinch. I didn't gasp. I just stood there. It wasn't rage. It wasn't shock. It was clarity. The kind you don't get until you see something with your own eyes. I had spent so long in my head, wondering, doubting, replaying conversations. But none of that mattered now. I wasn't confused anymore. I didn't need to ask questions. She had answered all of them for me. I turned away from the window and walked back to my car like a ghost, numb to the cold, the noise, the city breathing around me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove. Past bars, streetlights, familiar neighborhoods that now felt foreign. I wasn't sure where I was going until I pulled into the driveway of our house. Our house. The word felt foreign now. I walked in through the side door, didn't bother turning on the lights. The dog looked up at me, sensing something was wrong, then padded back to his bed. I set my phone and keys on the table, took off my coat, just stood there. Everything felt still. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I left. Not permanently. Not yet. Just left. I grabbed my jacket and wallet, locked the door behind me, and walked out into the night. No destination. No plan. Just distance. I walked until my legs hurt, until the cold crept through my jeans and numbed my face. Eventually, I checked into a cheap motel outside the city. One of those places that smells like cigarette smoke and loneliness. The man at the desk didn't ask questions. I paid in cash and didn't leave a name. That night, I lay in a lumpy bed, staring at a cracked ceiling, and let the truth settle like dust on my chest. She was cheating. Not just emotionally. Not theoretically. Not maybe. She was. I saw it. And she wasn't sorry. Not yet. Maybe not ever. My phone buzzed once around midnight. A text from her. Book club running late. Don't wait up. I laughed. Quiet, bitter, hollow. She didn't know I'd seen her. Not yet. And suddenly I didn't feel the need to tell her. I didn't owe her anything. Not an argument. Not a confrontation. I didn't need a breakdown or an apology or a dramatic showdown. I didn't want to hear the lies she'd practiced, the half-truths she'd polished like glass. Let her wonder. Let her think she got away with it. Because that was the only power I had left. Silence. In the days that followed, I drifted. Motel to motel. Gas station meals. Long drives to nowhere. She texted more. Are you okay? Where are you? Call me please. I'm freaking out. I didn't do anything wrong. They escalated. Denials turned into demands. Then guilt. Then begging. But I didn't respond. I stared at my phone for hours, watching her panic play out in real time, and still, I said nothing. I wasn't trying to punish her. I just couldn't speak. Words felt useless. Broken things don't get fixed with words. Not when they're cracked at the foundation. I wasn't gone forever. I knew I'd have to return eventually, to face it, to sort the mess. But for now, I needed the distance. I needed the silence. I needed the space to grieve what she'd led without ever saying it out loud. And deep down, I think she knew. Because no matter what she said next, she couldn't unkiss him. And I couldn't unsee it. I didn't plan to disappear. It wasn't some dramatic decision I made with resolve and finality. I didn't pack a bag with symbolic weight or stare longingly in the rearview mirror. I just left. That first night at the motel stretched into another. And then another. By the time the fourth day came around, I was living in a blur of fast food wrappers, gas station receipts, and a growing collection of cheap plastic keycards. I rotated between 3 different motels on the outskirts of Denver, deliberately avoiding anything close to home. Not because I was hiding, but because I couldn't stand to look at anything familiar. Familiar reminded me of her. Familiar meant the life we had built. Every wall, every coffee cup, every framed photo of a vacation. I now realized she might have already started to emotionally leave. I stopped shaving. I stopped checking emails. I barely spoke to anyone, except when I had to answer credit or debit, or, do you want a receipt? The silence became a kind of medicine. No one knew where I was. Not even my brother. I turned off my location sharing, left my laptop at home, and let my phone battery die more often than not. When I did charge it, the notifications flooded in like a tide. Text after text from Emily. At first, they were soft, cautious. Hey, I'm getting worried. Can you please call me? Are you okay? Then came the rationalizations. I think we need to talk. Things are being taken out of context. Nothing happened. You're jumping to conclusions. Then the cracks started to show. You can't just vanish like this. This is insane. You're being dramatic. If you're trying to punish me, it's working. I'm not the bad guy here. And finally, inevitably, the please. I'm sorry. I messed up. Please come home. I'll explain everything. Please just give me a chance. Mark, I love you. Please. Each message chipped away at me, not because I believed her, but because I hated how familiar her voice still sounded in my head when I read them. That was the worst part. Not the betrayal itself, not even the image of her lips on someone else's. It was how close her voice still felt to mine. Even in silence, she had a place in my head. I didn't respond. Not once. I figured if she wanted a reaction, she could replay that kiss in her mind. That was the response. On the 6th day, I went to a laundromat in a strip mall off I-25. I sat in one of the cracked plastic chairs while my clothes tumbled inside the industrial dryer, watching families fold their kids' school uniforms, men scrolling phones, a teenager eating cold McDonald's while waiting for a spin cycle to end. No one looked at me. I was invisible, a ghost in plain sight, and for the first time I liked it that way. I don't remember what day it was when I realized I hadn't cried. Not once. I felt everything and nothing at the same time. There was no breakdown, no shaking sobs into a pillow. I just kept waking up in unfamiliar rooms, feeling like a visitor in my own body. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was the numbing effect of truth. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe it was grief too deep to register in traditional ways. Whatever it was, it emptied me out. I became quiet inside, hollow. Eventually, I turned the phone back on. The messages were still coming, but now they had changed again. They were shorter, sharper, as if her patience had finally expired. So this is how it ends? You're just going to walk away? I told people we're taking a break. I didn't tell them what really happened. I didn't want to ruin your name. That last one made me laugh. Ruin my name, as if I had anything to protect. I scrolled further. Buried in the stream of messages were a few from mutual friends. Kyle, Jamie, even my sister-in-law, Melissa. Hey man, Emily said you needed some time. Hope you're okay. Not trying to pry, but let us know if you need anything. We miss you around here. So she was spinning it. Of course she was. Framing this like I just needed space. Like I cracked under stress or burned out from work. Like we were on a break, her words. The truth was too ugly to share. I pictured her sipping wine with friends, eyes glossy as she told half-truths about our rough patch, shaking her head sadly and pretending to be the one left behind. I imagined her playing the role of the heartbroken wife, concerned and confused, while the man from the rooftop bar texted her from across town. It made me sick, not just because she was rewriting the story, but because she knew how to make people believe it. Emily was always good at that. Before everything fell apart, she could walk into a room and bend it around her. She didn't demand attention. She just received it, naturally, effortlessly. People trusted her because she was composed, elegant, sharp. But now I realized that same composure made her dangerous. Because you can't see a lie in someone who never loses their smile. I stayed gone for another 3 days. Somewhere in that stretch, the motel clerk started giving me the same room without asking. Room 117. It had a sticky bathroom light switch and a flickering lamp by the window, but at least it didn't smell like mildew like 109 did. Funny how quickly you adjust. How fast you start calling a stranger's bed safe. One night, I sat outside that room and smoked a cigarette I bought on a whim. I don't even smoke, but I sat there, letting the bitterness settle into my throat, watching cars fly by on the freeway, wondering what she was doing in that exact moment. Probably sleeping, probably still lying to herself. I didn't know when I'd go back. I just knew I had to, eventually. The house was still mine. My clothes, my records, my dog. Max, God, I missed that dog. His big, dopey eyes. The way he curled up by the window when it rained. I wondered if he waited for me. If he could tell something had broken. He probably knew before I did. Dogs always do. On the 10th day, I finally checked my voicemail. There were 6 messages. 3 from Emily. 2 from my boss. 1 from my mom. I deleted the ones from Emily before they finished playing. I didn't need to hear her voice. Not yet. Not when it still had the power to cut me open. But the one from my mom caught me off guard. Hi, sweetheart. I know something's wrong. I won't push. Just come home when you're ready. We love you. That was it. Simple. Unconditional. It broke something loose in me. Not tears. Still not yet. but a kind of breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Later that night, I looked at myself in the mirror above the sink. I had bags under my eyes, a few new lines in my forehead, and the kind of beard that made me look more lost than rugged. I touched the glass lightly, like maybe the man staring back wasn't me anymore. Or maybe he was finally becoming someone else. Someone less fooled. Someone less trusting. Someone who wouldn't fall for the right smile ever again. I didn't go back the next morning, but I started driving closer to home. The motels became more familiar. The city skyline returned. I passed our street twice before I could make myself turn in. And even then, I didn't park. I just sat at the curb and looked at our house. The porch light was still on. Her car in the driveway. My jacket still hanging by the front door window. Everything looked the same. But I wasn't. And nothing ever would be again. When I finally returned to the house, it was supposed to feel like a victory. I'd survived 10 days in limbo, drifting between highway exits and dingy rooms. I'd built myself a cocoon of silence, convinced that when I stepped back through our front door, something would be different. Maybe she'd be gone. Maybe she'd be waiting, contrite, her eyes red from crying. Maybe there'd be some semblance of clarity. Instead, the house was exactly as I'd left it. Keys still on the table, my half-folded laundry on the dryer, a stack of unopened mail. The only difference was Emily. She was sitting by the window, scrolling through her phone, her face an unreadable mask. When she saw me, she straightened, as if she'd rehearsed this moment. "Mark," she said softly, setting her phone down. "You're back." That was it. No rush to embrace me, no tears, no barrage of questions about where I'd been. Just a calm greeting, like I'd returned from a business trip. "Yeah," I said, my voice flat. The dog padded into the room, tail wagging tentatively. He sat beside me as if to anchor me to the floor. Emily's eyes flicked toward him, then back to me. "I didn't know if you'd come back," she said. "I wasn't sure either." A beat of silence passed, heavy and brittle. She looked down at her hands. "I've been telling people you needed space, that we're taking a break." I let out a dry laugh. "A break?" "It sounded better than the truth," she said, her voice steady but low. "I didn't want them to think we were—" She stopped herself. "Think we were what?" "Falling apart," she said. I stared at her, at the woman I thought I knew. "Emily, we're not falling apart. You already took it apart." She flinched at that but didn't argue. Instead, she said, "Mark, I made mistakes, but I don't think you're being fair." "Fair?" My laugh was sharp enough to cut. "Do you know where I've been these past 2 weeks? Eating cold fries in motel parking lots while you're telling people we're on a break?" Her mouth opened, then closed. "You're not even sorry," I said. "You're just unsettled that I'm not playing my part anymore." Her face hardened, and for the first time since I'd walked in, she looked angry. "I'm unsettled because you disappeared, because you're making assumptions without giving me a chance to explain." I shook my head. "I don't need an explanation. I was at the Renaissance Sky Lounge, Emily. I saw you." Her eyes widened for just a split second before she caught herself. "You were spying on me? Don't turn this around on me. I saw you. The dress. The man. The kiss. Was that just a break too?" Silence. Her gaze shifted to the floor. "I can't do this right now," she murmured. "Yeah," I said, my voice cracking. "You never can." I turned and went upstairs, leaving her in the living room. That night, I slept in the guest room. The door closed. She didn't knock. The next morning, she was gone. No note. Just an empty kitchen and the faint smell of her new perfume. I sat at the table, staring at the spot where she'd been the night before, wondering how long she'd been building this second life while I worked overtime to fund ours. By noon, my phone buzzed with a text from a friend. It was a photo, Emily at a downtown bar, laughing with the same man from the rooftop. His arm was around her shoulders, their drinks raised in a toast. Underneath the photo, my friend had written, "I thought you should see this. She told people you're separated." My chest went cold. So it wasn't just an affair. It wasn't a fling she was ashamed of. It was a narrative she was crafting. One where I was the one who left, the one who broke things, the one who pushed her into someone else's arms. I stared at the photo until my vision blurred. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was building something new, openly, publicly, while I drifted in limbo. That night, she returned home late, makeup still perfect, a faint glow in her cheeks. She set her bag down, saw me sitting in the dark, and hesitated. "What?" she asked, her tone defensive. I held up my phone, the photo glowing in the dim light. "You're not even trying to hide it now." She crossed her arms. "I told you, Mark. We're on a break. People think we're separated. I'm not sneaking around." I stood, my hands trembling. "We're married. There is no break. There is no separation. There's just you deciding to live a double life and hoping I'll disappear quietly." Her jaw clenched. "You left. Not me." I took a step closer, my voice low but steady. "I left because you were cheating, because I needed space to breathe. Not because I gave you permission to replace me." She looked away, her shoulders tense. I realized then that whatever was left of us had already been replaced. Not at the rooftop bar, not at the hotel, but long before. The lies, the distance, the rehearsed excuses. Those were the bricks of her new life. I wasn't part of it. And she wasn't sorry. Not really. Over the next week, the pattern solidified. She'd vanish for hours, sometimes overnight, claiming work emergencies, or catching up with friends. Mutual friends started reaching out to me with half-sympathetic messages. "She says you're figuring things out. She says you've agreed to see other people." Each message was another nail in the coffin. One afternoon, I opened my email and found a string of receipts from our joint account, spa visits, hotel rooms, high-end restaurants. All in her name, all recent. I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I wanted to forward them to her with a single line. "I see you." But I didn't. Instead, I sat back and let the truth settle in like concrete. This wasn't an affair. This wasn't even a betrayal in the traditional sense. This was a replacement. She hadn't slipped away. She had left months ago. She'd just been waiting for me to catch up. I thought back to that first text, the one that started it all. "Thank you for last night. I want more." It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't some drunken coworker. It was a window into the life she was already living. And now she wasn't just living it. She was flaunting it. I could feel something inside me harden. Not anger, not even heartbreak, but a cold clarity. A realization that the person I'd been fighting to hold onto no longer existed. That night, I lay awake in the guest room, listening to the faint sound of her laughter drifting up from the kitchen as she talked on the phone. Not whispering now, not hiding, open, bold. It wasn't a secret anymore. It was an announcement. And for the first time, I stopped imagining ways to fix it. I started imagining what it would feel like to finally let go. When I finally came back for good, the house felt like a museum of our life. Familiar but hollow. Emily sat by the window, drained, rehearsing apologies that sounded more like strategies. She spoke of loneliness and distraction, but I saw no remorse, only calculation. The next morning she was gone, a short note left behind. I felt no rage, only clarity. Love had ended long before. All that remained was release.